Welcome back to part 3 of 3. Friends, if you are here, you have made it, and I'm so glad you're here. During this session, we're going to have a really cool opportunity to hear from Kevin Finch. Friends, if I was being truthful with you, this is something I've been waiting for since the beginning of us planning this conference. Kevin has been doing some really cool work up in Spokane, Washington, and is growing in other places around the service industry, people who work in restaurants and hotels. And friends, especially in the season of COVID, it is so good to remember that people are still serving and loving others on those who are serving and loving us. So what's gonna happen is that we're gonna show you a video called Behind the Smiles that tells you the work that the Big Table is doing. And then immediately following that, we're gonna have an interview between Kevin Finch and one of our own, Dan Kimball.
Early 2000s, I had the opportunity to begin to moonlight as a food critic, where I got to see a little bit behind the kitchen door. I started to get the sense that there was a lot of pain behind their smile.
It's not what a lot of us want to do. It's what we fall back on.
A lot of the positions that exist don't pay very well.
Struggling with housing, finding ways to get to work as far as transportation.
There's a lot of alcohol and drug abuse that happens in, kitchens.
Because they work nights, weekends, and holidays, their schedules are completely opposite for the rest of the community. All of those things together, for me, was this aha of behind the smiles of the folks that are working in this industry is the highest concentration of need that I'd seen anywhere. And nobody's looking. What we decided we wanted to do was create community around a shared meal. They can be dishwashers or line cooks or servers or housekeepers. But the dinner itself is cooked by a top local chef. And it's 5, 6, 7 courses. At the very first dinner that we did back in 2009, I literally had no idea how to get to the care needs that we had. And I just thought, well, why don't I hand out 3x5 cards and ask people to write down the name of someone in need? And that simple spur-of-the-moment idea has defined everything we do.
A referral is somebody who's referred that needs assistance in some way or another, whether it's helping with a rent or pay a bill, or they need a dental visit or a medical visit. Often when we get people referred, somebody may be on the cusp of sometimes losing their job or on the cusp of losing their housing.
Instead of them having to come and ask saying, I need help, we get to enter their life saying, we hear you're having a tough time. How could we help?
A coworker of mine had heard that I was a little bit behind in rent.
Jenny originally was referred to Big Table because she was about to be evicted. I contacted the landlord and said, this rent is going to be paid for and please waive the late fees.
It was a huge relief, obviously, not having to worry about sleeping in a car or trying to figure out our next move.
Tamisha was one of my first care recipients and she got a great new job and she's like, I think I start next week, but I need these slip-proof shoes. It's like, that's why Big Table's here, absolutely. Come in on Friday and we'll go shopping and get shoes. She was like, you can do that?
When I found out about them, I was kind of skeptical because I'm like, okay, what's the catch? There's always a catch. But there was no catch, there was no catch at all. How she introduced herself to me and how she came at me, it was like with open arms. She just made me very comfortable with her.
It wasn't hard to see her uniqueness and her specialness and her gifts. And so I feel like I saw them and she was seen, and in being seen, she wanted more of that.
We really don't just want to meet the immediate need. We really want to understand what parameters in their life could be different to help them have a different road in the future.
There aren't as many people in my life that are like Shannon, that are supportive and loving no matter what, and aren't judgmental.
What Big Table does is creates hope for people. It creates a sense that there's someone who cares about me and is going to be in my life for more than just a blip.
People are more likely to make changes on their own when they're in a place of sitting with someone who doesn't judge them for whatever action they take. They're more likely to make changes when they're not being assessed.
Miss Shannon, she acts like, you know, she's a mama bear to me. You know, she's there to listen, you know, and at times I feel, you know, she's my protection. They're my light at the end of the They're like that light that's at the end of the tunnel for me. They don't help me out so much.
We often talk about what is behind the smiles that people see when they enter a restaurant, and I've come to know that there is a great deal of determination behind the smile.
We are caring for the working poor. These are folks that typically are very close, if not below the poverty line, but trying to do something about it for themselves.
Catching someone before they fall off the edge is a gift to everyone. It's a gift to the people that are hurting and in crisis. It's a gift to their children. It's a gift to their workplaces. It's a gift to taxpayers in general.
We intervene before they're evicted. Very few organizations have any mechanism to do that. We can help before because of the relationship, because of the referral. And depending on where we are in the state, that can be a $400 to $800 intervention that prevents a whole family from going homeless.
It is such a gift to get to tell somebody, we will pay your rent and your heat and your phone and help get you stable.
They give me a reason to smile, to laugh, you know, to feel wanted. They make me feel wanted. They're not judging me off my past, they're helping me with my future.
I think what we're after is not an organization. It will never be an organization. It's a movement of people that care for those in this industry who literally are on the bottom rung. They haven't fallen quite yet. These are folks that we can catch. And by we, I mean everyone who's eaten in a restaurant, everyone who's stayed in a hotel. Everybody that engages this industry should be caring for this industry.
Everybody should know about Big Table. Every city should have a Big Table, because I'm not the only one. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that's out there like me that need to know that there is support.
I can't wait to be on the ground in New York, in Chicago, in Dallas, in Denver, in Atlanta. There are amazing restaurants in all those places, but I also know there are thousands upon thousands of Arby's and Burger Kings and McDonald's in those places. And in every one of those places, there are people in need of help right now that we can't get to yet, but we will.
All right, well, welcome everyone. We are so excited to introduce to you one of our 2021 Work Matters speakers, Kevin Finch. Kevin is with a nonprofit in Spokane called Big Table, and we are just so excited to have Kevin join us virtually. Kevin was, of course, supposed to join us live a year ago, and due to circumstances beyond our control, we've, of course, now doing this as a virtual conference. So, Kevin, we are so glad you're with us. And by way of introduction, Kevin is with a nonprofit called Big Table. And what Big Table's mission and purpose is to serve those in the restaurant industry. And what a powerful kind of work that you're doing. And so welcome, Kevin.
Thanks. Glad to be here virtually.
Yeah. So, of course, we're just thrilled with the story of Big Table, how you started. So maybe just by way of introduction, just tell us a little bit about how you started Big Table.
I was in the early 2000s. Was my day job is I was a pastor. I was working as a pastor, and I was moonlighting as a restaurant critic. I put those two together. That's a pretty unusual combination. I think I might still have the claim to fame of being the only restaurant critic in the country that was also a pastor. That's not a normal combination.
Yeah.
And I was in a church at the time that was going through some struggles. I felt called to be there, but it was hard. And stumbling across the offer to start writing restaurant reviews on the side on my days off and in some evenings just felt like this incredible gift. So I would get to go out and eat, pay for other people to eat with me, and then write about it. And it was just this pure delight to do that. So that was kind of the backdrop for Big Table. In the course of that, I started to have a sense that I'd almost call it a pastoral spidey sense that the people working in the restaurant and hospitality industry, it seemed like there was a higher concentration of need than anywhere else in the community that I'd seen. Behind their smiles, they obviously keep their jobs by taking care of the rest of us. But behind that, when I started poking around for the statistics, it seemed like things weren't as bad as I thought they might be. They were much, much worse. Highest rates of drug and alcohol abuse, incredibly high levels of poverty and broken relationships, stress levels off the chart, very unpredictable work hours, just almost every category. It was really bad. And not because this industry is any worse than other industries at taking care of its people. I think sometimes when you see problems, you can blame it in the wrong place. The restaurant hospitality industry is the one industry where if you're willing to work, you can get a job. You don't have to have a degree. You don't have to be able to speak English. There's all kinds of barriers in place for other jobs that don't exist for the restaurant and hospitality industry. But what that means is all of the folks who are most vulnerable in the community concentrate in restaurants and hotels. And so when you put all the most vulnerable people together, of course, there's going to be higher need. And that became evident to me over the course of about 5 years writing about food.
So in that process, you identify this need. You see that this industry has people that have need. And so maybe talk to us a little bit about going from identifying a need to the starting the nonprofit.
Yeah. I wasn't planning to start a nonprofit. I was planning to support another nonprofit that was doing something about it, only to discover that out of 1.5 million nonprofits registered with the IRS in the country, there wasn't a single one caring for the largest industry in the nation.
Wow.
And in that number, there were 25,000 that were caring for dogs and cats, which out of 1.5 million, obviously there should be something to help animals.
Yeah.
But if there's something to help animals, shouldn't there be so many more helping the folks that are most in need in the country? And there weren't. But I'm a pastor, or I was a pastor at that point. I guess I still am. I wasn't planning to start an organization. But in the fall of 2006, middle of the night, God woke me up, and it was an audible voice as I was standing in the darkness trying to figure out what had woken me up that said, "Kevin, I need a pastor for the restaurant industry. Are you interested?" And when I answered, I said yes, but what would that look like? Because the one thing I'd figured out from 5 years of writing about food at that point was anytime I mentioned I was a pastor, no one in the industry would talk to me. So I felt like I wasn't sure what was happening in the middle of the night, but I thought I'd just been offered a job that I would love if it worked, but it was a job that was a guaranteed failure because no one in the industry wanted a pastor.
Wow.
And when I asked what would that look like in a pitch black bedroom, I all of a sudden was staring at a Bible that was lit up, open to Acts chapter 2, which said, reading that passage where Luke talks about the early church forming. And as I read it, two images flashed off the page. They ate together, and if anyone had a need, they took care of each other.
Wow.
And then the voice said, that's how you pastor this group of people. And standing there, pitch black room, voice gone, image of the Bible gone, I thought, that might actually work. So to answer your question, it was a sense of call that pushed me from here's a need, but I don't know what to do about it, to I think I need to do something. I need to be part of something that changes this.
So you follow the call. You find the need. You take that jump. You start Big Table. Now, how do you bring people along with you? Because I imagine that some people might have thought you were a little nuts, maybe even including your own family or friends. So what was that like, and what was the process of getting people on board of this crazy idea?
Everyone thought I was crazy. There wasn't a model for what we wanted to do anywhere in the country. Most of the folks that sent me off from my position when I stepped out of my position in the church came to me years later and said, we thought you were nuts, and we were sure this would not work. But I think that's one of the gifts of following call. And when God gets involved is, and I'm by the way, I'm very grateful none of them told me that at the time, because that might have totally tanked me. But they didn't. And so I plowed off to start this and just started sharing the story and telling people. And one of the things that you can do, and I guess I would say this for any of you that are asking, what is it that God's calling you to do? It's very probable that you see some need, or there's some passion that you have that you see much more clearly than anyone else. And if that's true, maybe what God's going to call you to do is to share that and not give up. When you look at Scripture, there are people that just were dogged in saying, this is where we need to go, or this is what needs to be done. And I think that's what happened with me, is having seen this need that to me felt so urgent, I just couldn't stop talking about it. So every conversation became a conversation for me. So bringing other people along, tell them.
Yeah. Why do you think this work is important, Kevin?
Frederick Buechner has a definition of call as the place where the world's deep need and your deep delight meet. For me, I've always loved food. I've always loved people, which is why I think I was a good pastor. But Big Table has brought that sense of my delight and my love directly in contact with an incredible need that was being unmet in the nation. Interestingly, through COVID, that's become brutally obvious to everyone, as over 8 million folks, frontline workers in the restaurant and hospitality industry, are some of the folks who've been most brutally hit by the shutdowns caused by the pandemic.
So the pandemic was, the restaurant industry is already hard. Now you throw in the pandemic, now it makes it even harder and the need becomes greater. So maybe can you share with us a little bit about how you have had to adjust and what the pandemic has done to the industry and to specifically to Big Table or for Big Table?
Well, and you're exactly right, Dan, that the industry was the toughest industry before the pandemic. 43% of the folks working in restaurants were below the level of what an economist would say you need just to survive. So almost half the industry is literally living in poverty while they're working 1, 2, even 3 jobs. That's when they've got a job. Highest rates of drug and alcohol abuse, all these statistics of vulnerability before the pandemic. And then you just shut the industry down. There's no way they can, and interestingly enough, a lot of them, whether it's uncertain immigration status, whether it's just gig work that they've done, that they were a lot of the folks who didn't get stimulus checks when everyone else did. Because there were all these reasons that it was hard to get all the things lined up. So referral after referral came in for Big Table Care of people that were 3, 4, 5 months into the pandemic had not seen a single cent of support from the government, and they're trying to take care of their whole family, and they've got no resources. So obviously the pandemic changed things, forced us to move to kind of a triage model, helping with food stability or food insecurity and housing stability, just for folks that were right on the edge.
Is there anything that new that you've had brought into the program, or is it just the needs become greater?
One of the things that happened, and this was more true in San Diego and Seattle than in Spokane, just because of the demographics of the community, is we realized we had to hire fluent Spanish speakers to care for the most vulnerable, because some of the folks who were most hard hit couldn't even communicate with us in English what the needs were. So initially we had to hire translators to help us do that work. And now in both Seattle and San Diego, we have fluent Spanish speakers on staff, specifically because we need to care for the folks most in need.
Kevin, can you think of or reflect on a short moment or story, or just kind of an aha moment with the work at Big Table, where you were like, yeah, that's it. This is why it matters.
There was a single mom that was working as a bartender, 3 little kids. The car that she drove to to interview at a new place was a convertible where the top would get stuck and wouldn't go up, wouldn't come down, and it had no reverse. The manager that hired her at that job, after hiring her, noticed her pushing her car out of the parking lot. Went out, asked if there was a problem. She said, "No, this is my car." That manager knew about Big Table, called us, said, "Could you guys get this person a new car?" At that point, Big Table had just started. We were on a shoestring budget. But thankfully, I said, rather than saying, "No, we don't have the ability," I said, "We'll see what we can do." 2 days later, I get a call from a woman in Seattle saying, "I've got a car that we'd like to donate. Before we give it to Cars for Charity, is there any chance Big Table needs it?" And we obviously did. We gave her that car. It was a life changer, a game changer for her with her family. But the aha moment for me with Big Table was 3 years later, when I'm sitting with her and she says, "Kevin, that car allowed me to stay in school. It allowed me to keep my job and get my kids to school. But I would trade that car in an instant for the chance to have been in relationship with you and your team." That's what really changed my life. And so all of the stuff about needs is critical. And obviously, we've been doing triage care through the pandemic to the point as fast as we can. But what changes people's lives is always going to be relationships, not a check, not that. And so whatever you end up doing, make sure it's about relationships.
So Kevin, as we close our time together, unfortunately, it goes by too fast. As we come to a close, is there any advice or anything you could give folks who are just, in this ever-changing world that we're in? Can you offer any words of insider advice?
Yeah. Well, I think that first piece is you probably can't do what God might be calling you to do by yourself. You're probably going to need some people alongside of you who have different gift sets. So finding a way to share and bring others into what God's calling you to do is probably going to be part of it. I think a second piece would be in finding that call for yourself is, what do you see that others don't? What do you see more clearly that others don't? Or what do you see that just is invisible to others? And then I think a third thing I would say is that failure becomes a viable option when you're doing work that matters. You don't have to be afraid of failure anymore, because if you have to fail to do something that really needs to be done, okay. I think we're so afraid of failure that we're not willing to step out and do something. So find something where you go, this is so important that it needs to be done, that I'm willing to fail. when I stopped to start Big Table, I went to my wife and said, I don't know if this will work. I don't know if we can make this go. And she turned to me and she said, you know, Kevin, if this only works, if you can only do this for a month or 2 months, and then you have to get a job selling used cars, which she didn't know at the time would have been my nightmare job. Literally the job that I would most not want to do in the world. She picked that one. I think that was interesting.
Yeah.
She says, if that's what you have to do, you should still do this for 2 months. And 12 years later, every month, I've gotten to do what this has been, which has been such an incredible joy.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much for being with us. We, of course, would love for you to be in person, and hopefully in the future we'll be able to have you in Fresno. If you do come to Fresno and want to do restaurant critic here, you will have to up your taco game, because we take our tacos here in Fresno very seriously.
I am a huge taco fan.
Yeah, so we look forward to seeing you in person, and just want to say thank you for your passion, for your vision for Big Table, and for joining us for Work Matters.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Dan. And friends, we really hope you enjoyed this last video. I hope that it was able to give you some clarity, some hope, some vision, and know that this was not just supposed to happen to give answers, but to spark something in you, to help us begin to think deeper about why are we doing what we're doing. Where can we begin to see what our role is bringing the hope to the world around us? So friends, I hope that today you have found even deeper meaning and purpose in why you're doing your work, and maybe even asking deeper questions about what's next. What legacy am I leaving behind? Where do I go from here? It has been my joy to be your guide through this process, and I hope that this is not just the ending of something, but the beginning of a journey of you diving deeper into why your work matters. Thank you for being with us, friends. Have a good day.